And that's why we can't have nice things, everybody. Right, welcome to tonight's solo show with me, Johnny No Mates. Unfortunately, Spence is spencing and Drew's off drewing somewhere, so I'm here all by my lonesome. But we've got some things to get on with, actually. We are, this evening, going to be getting on with some actual modelling. But I thought tonight we will, what we'll also do is we'll go through on the Facebook page, we'll go through your contributions to Matchbox May, which we'll probably do around the halfway stage. And I'm also going to be doing a little bit of building here. Namely, he says, setting the camera up, we are going tonight to actually crack into this bad boy, which is my vintage Matchbox Grumman Hellcat with the two canopies. And this is for Spencer's book. Very nice olive drab and neutral grey Hellcat on the front there. I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, so I'm going to be building that tonight. And I'm also going to be dipping into my own kind of Matchbox memories as well, which as I was out and about today, I was actually trying to kind of like formulate and remember how I actually came across Matchbox originally. And I think I've got my story straight, but it was nearly 50. Well, it was 50 years ago. So bear with me. And like I say, we'll be back on Sunday, and I get to do my top 5 Matchbox kits, which will probably be a top 7 or 8 because I'm in charge. So, but anyway, so hello to everybody who's tuned in tonight. Like I said, it's going to be a solo effort tonight, and a little bit of model building as well. So hello to everybody who's tuned in. Right, me and Matchbox, where did it all start? Well, I first became aware of Matchbox probably about 1973, to be honest with you. It would have been when we were still living in Berkshire at the time, and when we lived in a place called Wokingham, just outside Reading, and Bracknell. And now, up until that point, I'd actually started building models. So I would have been about 5 or 6. My father had built me a beautiful collection of model airplanes when I was 5. I started cutting my teeth building models around that same time. And I certainly can remember when we lived in Wokingham, kits that I built would have included the original Airfix 72nd scale P51D. I have memories of building the Scottish Aviation Bulldog, the Scorpion Tank, Gloucester Meteor, the Mirage 3, certainly some dogfight doubles, the 262 and the Mosquito definitely stick in the mind there. The Battlefront sets, which I got for my birthday one year, and my mother made this brilliant diorama baseboard for me. Absolutely fantastic. Hello, Mum. And yeah, so I'd got to about the age of 6, and I was already a kind of like an Airfix boy. I'd also dabbled a little bit with Revell. I remember at that time I built the Revell 109E in 72nd scale and their P47D. The closest I'd come to actually making any frog kits was it was a frog reboxing by Humbrol of the P40B Tomahawk, which is a strange story in itself. And I think I've told it on the show, and we'll probably tell it again another time. So up until that time, my experience of Matchbox was mostly die casts, because I had, like most small boys of my age, I had Matchbox cars. I had the Matchbox car tracks with the plastic tongues where you link them all together and you could loop them and do everything. I had that as much as we could afford, but I had that. And so to me, Airfix made kits, Matchbox made die casts. So round about that time, when I think we were on a shopping trip, and I walked into a shop, probably a newsagent's, and I saw Matchbox kits. As you can imagine, my 6-year-old world was turned upside down, because Matchbox don't make kits. Matchbox make metal cars. Airfix make kits. I wouldn't expect to walk into a shop and suddenly start seeing Airfix die-cast cars. What were Matchbox playing at? It's funny how, as a child, because you literally have a child's eye view of the world, I thought everything was cut and dried. As I said, Airfix make kits, Matchbox make diecast. So Matchbox suddenly making kits was utterly confusing to me. And it wasn't until a while later that I actually tried one of their kits, and I honestly can't remember what the first one would have been. There are so many contenders for my first Matchbox kit. I'm going to be unoriginal and say it probably was their Spitfire Mark 9, which, yeah, I think it was. But around that time, I do remember building the Focke-Wulf 190, the Hurricane 2C, the Fury, the Siskin, the Tempest. Goodness me, I'm just trying to rack my brains for some other bits and pieces that we did. The Strike Master, the Alpha Jet. So these came around. But as to the first one, I do get the feeling it probably was the Spitfire Mark 9. And instantly, I fell in love with them. The fact that I didn't have to paint them. I didn't have to paint them because they had green fuselages and brown wings. Close enough, as a kid. And it was the fact that they often gave you optional parts, which Airfix and Airfix and Frog didn't necessarily always do, and Revell. Certainly Matchbox did give you a choice of markings in every kit. That was a standard default in all their kits. You always got a choice of 2 markings. In the bigger ranges, you got 3. So instantly that set them apart from Airfix and Revell and Frog, where sometimes the markings were limited. Like I say, Frog were very much on the peripheries. I think they were a little bit too pricey. The distribution at the time wasn't fantastic. It would have been Airfix first, then Revell. I do remember some other stuff sneaking in at the time, like I built some Eschi armor, some Nitto armor, a few other bits and pieces like that. But yeah, so I was Matchbox turned up. So over the next kind of like 3-4 years, we moved briefly from Wokingham to a place called Finch Hampstead, which I'd like to try and forget. And then if you've been to Finch Hampstead, you'll know why. And then from Finch Hampstead, we then moved to Somerset, which is where I've been ever since. And it wasn't until we moved to Somerset that I actually was exposed to their armor kits. But I remember certainly during the latter parts of the Berkshire years, that I built the Wellington. I got that as my family were very interesting in as much as we didn't do fireworks. So instead of having fireworks on kind of like November the 5th, we got Lego or we got presents. I don't know why. I actually think my parents had the right idea, because fireworks go, that's it. Experience over, and very expensive. Whereas if you had Lego, that lasted a very long time. Or if you had a model, that was a couple of evenings entertainment. So yeah, it was, I remember I got, actually 1 year I did get the Airfix Avro Anson, but the next one I got the Matchbox Wellington. The Matchbox Wellington with the Coastal Command GR option. Honestly. And that was it. Matchbox. Oh, the hours I spent trying to work out whether I should build the inline engine Tempest or do the radial engined one with the Indian markings. You're 6-7 years old. You've just invested your pocket money in a kit, and pocket money was scarce, and you didn't know when you were going to build another model. And here are Matchbox saying, well, you could build it like this, and I'm like, yes, RAF, yes, or you could build it like this one, which has got different markings. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so by the time we moved to Somerset, that's when I started venturing into the armor kits. around about 77, 78, because they were stocked by Mr. Simper, the local toy / model / bike shop. And yeah, the armor kits turned me into an armor modeler instantly, because you got the dire armor base. Again, you had optional parts sometimes. You certainly had a choice of markings. Airfix didn't offer that at all. And yeah, I became a massive fan of the Matchbox armor range and worked my way through them as much as I could. And that was pretty much it. Once I got into my adult years, Matchbox were always with me. I remember playing catch up with them when they were bringing new stuff out in the 80s. Seeing them at my very first IPMS Nationals was such a thrill, kind of like, it's Matchbox. And yeah, and I built things like the Wessex, the Meteor, the Tornado, and they did a very nice Challenger 1 tank in 76 scale. And yeah, so Matchbox never really went away. And I mean, we'll talk about this more on Sunday when I'm on with Spencer, because we'll go through my box arts and things. But why I have such an affection for this company, even I can't fathom them out, because to be honest, if you look at their kits, sometimes they weren't great kits, sometimes they weren't great replicas. But for somebody of my age, of that era, when these came out, and I was probably the peak, not me personally, but kids of my age were probably the peak target audience that Matchbox were going for. And we were just like, yeah, all over them, like a rash on a rash. So yeah, utterly brilliant company. I still love them. I still seek out their models today. I still build them. And in fact, one of the, I'm just trying to see if I can find, I've got messages coming through here from, no, we're fine. I didn't know if my co-hosts wanted to join me tonight, but they don't. And one of the things that, let me just see if I can find this. Let's talk about being prepared for tonight. If you fail to prepare to fail. But I can always remember one of the kits that that came out in the late 80s was the Matchbox Buckeye. And forgive me for rattling this story out yet again. And it was one of the ones that I bought at the time. I bought the kit at the time, but never got around to building it. And in fact, up in the attic, I still have in its box, unbuilt, is my original Matchbox T2 Buckeye. And so this is going back to 2009, when I went out to the Frue Model Centre with the late great Mr. Hector Hamer, who introduced me to that hallowed place. That was one of those days where so many things happened within that shop on the day that it just felt like I'd discovered a brand new hobby again. And that's only ever happened once before. And the previous occasion that happened once before was in 1985, when I had been away from the hobby doing school stuff and fancied building a model, and built the Matchbox 76 scale Stuart Honey tank. And yeah, suddenly I felt like I was coming back into a new hobby again. So anyway, long story short, I picked up the Revell reboxing of the Matchbox Buckeye. And that night I came home. I had my embryonic workshop here, which had literally a fraction of the junk I've got in here now, paints and glues and things. But I always remember I sat there, and I'd also bought all the Model Air paints I needed to paint the thing, which was exciting in itself, because here was a brand of paint that I'd rarely used before. And everything felt like you were starting out on a brand new adventure again, which to me was just, occasionally it will happen in this hobby. You will kind of like be doing things, and then something will come along and it just changes in an instant. It changes your perspective. Anyway, long story short, I built the Buckeye, and I built this absolutely straight from the box, no refinements whatsoever, no detailing. I just wanted to build that Matchbox kit as Matchbox intended. How I would have liked to have built it, or how I would have liked to have built Matchbox kits as a kid, but didn't have the skills or the tools or any of that kind of stuff. So to actually sit down and build this Buckeye, trying out these new Vallejo paints that were new to me, honestly, it was such even though I'd kind of like already punched through my 40s, it was such a formative experience, and it genuinely felt like I was suddenly back into a new hobby, or I had new things to explore, strange new worlds, civilization, all that kind of stuff. And I really can't. It's hard to really kind of articulate just how exciting it was building this model, because it honestly, it was like I was building a model through the eyes of a 6-year-old again. But as I say, there were new paints, new tools, new techniques to try out. It felt like a completely new hobby again. And I think if ever you get the chance to have that experience, and they do come around every now and then, it's wonderful. It's utterly, utterly wonderful. So, yeah, there we go. That was my that was the Matchbox Buckeye, and again, that was Matchbox coming back into my life and being an important part of my modelling kind of makeup. And that model still sits in my display cabinet. It's one of my favourite models. It's clearly not one of my best models, but in terms of what it represents, it is one of my favourite models. So anyway, let's get a quick catch up through the comments here. So Mike Williams says, happy Matchbox May, everyone. Thank you, Mike. Happy Matchbox May to you as well. Let's just go through the Matchbox. Jim Aldergott says, my first Matchbox kit was purchased from my local hobby shop in 1979. Paul Milligan says, my first Matchbox kit was the 109, the ME109 in that amazing Dettled mottled scheme. Then the Spitfire, up till then, totally Airfix. Do you know what, Jim? Here it is. I craved that 109. Could never find it as a kid. And I only got around to building that probably about 10 years ago, because I found a copy of that boxing in a junk shop in Bath, and it was probably about 20 years ago, and they wanted like £2 for it. And in fact, they had a load of Matchbox kits there for about £2 each, and I was like, snap them all up. But I love that kit. It's actually, when it came out, one of the first more dimensionally accurate 109 kits. Not the best detailed. I think the Hasegawa kit that came out around that time, certainly better detailed, certainly more finesse, but it's not as accurate as the Matchbox kit, I think. And then Jim says, he says, Buccaneer, Hunter, Jaguar, Harrier, MiG-21 Vegan, Northrop F5, Alpha Jet, Mirage 3, F-86 Sabre, all 1/72 scale Matchbox kits I built. Mentioned the Sabre, built that one as well. Jeff says, what about the armor? We will talk about the armor on Sunday, Jeff. We will talk about the armor. But I got to say, as far as Matchbox May goes, there's nothing stopping anybody from doing anything from the Matchbox kits line. Armor, ships, cars. I've never built any of the Matchbox ship kits. I said that. I got that out in one go. Good. I haven't built any of the Matchbox ship kits, and I've never built any of their cars, and I know I should. So Mike Williams says, my first Matchbox kit was a Folland Nat Red Arrow, which I painted yellow. Well, rather interestingly, Mike, when the Nat came out, Matchbox, they included red arrows, a red arrow option, but I used the term singular. Airfix did their Nat. They gave you markings for the entire team. Matchbox only gave you one aircraft, and then they did a CFS aircraft as the secondary scheme, which is rather ironic, because that's when Airfix released their Folland Nat in the 1960s. Their first issue was actually a CFS aircraft before it became the Red Arrow. So, things kind of like very fluid in terms of that. Sean says, mine was the Buccaneer. Never built the Buccaneer. I got it. I never built it. Paul Milligan says, they seem to be better fitting than some Airfix at the time. Absolutely, Paul, because that was the thing, is because they were new tool kits. They were very compact on the sprues that they did them in. They were always very well molded. The detail may have been a bit heavy. They may have been simplified, but you weren't fighting them like. Let's try and think of some kits of that era. Revell, I'm looking at you. The Revell 109, the Revell P47, the Revell P51D Mustang. I built that back in that time, and yeah, You know, I think you'd hammer in nails and you'd still be kind of like lucky if you could get the bits to fit together. And Sean says, heaven for me, with the 3 colours, as my mum wouldn't allow me to have paint. Well, I just couldn't afford to have the paints at the time. And Mike Williams says, in 1990, I was 14 years of age. Yeah, we don't like Mike. He's making us feel old here. Yeah. In 1990, I was 14 years of age, built the Matchbox 32nd scale Douglas SBD Dauntless, and won my first ever gold at a competition at a very early Southern Expo in South London, years before the Hornchurch venue. Wow. If you've still got that model, Mike, or you've got a picture of it, I'd love to see that because, you know, never won a competition. Well, I have, but I did. I won a competition. That was it, and thought I've peaked. Won't go any further. Matthew Walker says Matchbox was a huge part of my fondly cherished childhood memories. Excellent. Yeah, like I say, you know, Airfix probably professionally certainly have been a big part of my life, but in terms of you know, my enjoyment of the hobby, I have a soft spot for Frog. I certainly have a soft spot for Revell. You know, I love my vintage Airfix kits, but Matchbox for me are the ones. Steve Moores says in 1990 I was blowing up UXBs on Holbeach ranges on the Wash, and building. Come on, and building an RC Matchbox Corvette. And I'm just seeing David Mummery says his first one was the F-104 Starfighter, and yes, I stuck the German and Canadian decals on. We were talking about on Sunday, the Matchbox Starfighter, which I built for Spencer's book a couple of years ago. Matchbox were very optimistic in trying to get a Starfighter to fit into a little box like that. And in fact, Matchbox did put that Starfighter into the purple range, which that's going some, because you ended up with a fuselage that was made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think it was 8 parts just to get it to fit in there. Christian Gerard says, my first Matchbox kit was the Alpha Jet, dating back to 1973 or so. Interesting thing about the Alpha Jet, which we'll probably touch upon on Sunday, but it was one of the few Matchbox kits. I think the Boeing P6 was probably on P6, P12, I was getting mixed up. But the little Boeing biplane that Matchbox did, one of the few Matchbox kits where the actual moulding of the colours did mirror the actual paint scheme of the aircraft. So the Alpha Jet, I remember there were some prototypes that had kind of like white fuselages and red wings, and Matchbox, you could, if you're a kid, not paint it, and it looked quite good. Nigel's modelling bench says, I just bought a Revell Matchbox 32nd scale Lysander, one of my favourite childhood builds. Fantastic kit. I've got one up in the attic. It's lovely. And Matthew says he's just bought the 72nd scale Siskin, which is absolutely beautiful. It's honestly, the fabric effect on that is absolutely stunning. John Kelly says, last year I blagged a Matchbox kit I never heard of, 1/12 scale Vincent Black Shadow. Yep, that's one of their motorbike kits that again, I've never built any of their motorbike kits either. I'm absolutely well behind the times with some of these Matchbox things. And Steve Ryan says, definitely remember being traumatized by the Spitfire, not an aircraft from our finest hour, but perhaps not Matchbox's finest hour. Jim says, forgot about the F-104 in West German colours, also the 32nd scale 109E, which Spencer built a couple of years ago, and he did a splendid job. And again, dimensionally, quite an accurate kit. And Jeff says, I think the Sherman Firefly on the bridge base is an early build, along with the Harrier and the MiG-21 in the mid-70s. Just reminded me, Jeff, the Harrier, of course, I built the Harrier in 1975-ish. And Steve Moore also says, was it Matchbox that did the Chips motorcycle? I know Revell certainly did, because I've got the reviews in Airfix magazine from that. So that might have been Revell because they had the license for it. But I don't know. It could be that Matchbox did a Californian Highway Patrol motorbike as part of their AMT boxings. I don't know about it being a Chips tie-in though, but I'm sure somebody will correct me on that. And Ian Hartup says their tie-in with AMT led to some interesting cars in the lineup. It certainly did, because they not only did they have some interesting AMT cars in there, but they also were tied in with the AMT Star Trek kits, of which I think I quizzed Matt Irvin on this, and I seem to remember that although they advertised, I'm trying to don't quote me on this, but I think although Matchbox may have released all the motion picture kits, reboxes of the motion picture kits, as far as I know, they may not have ever released any of the original series kits, even though they were in the catalogue. But somebody will correct me on that. And Nigel, Tim says, anybody who has a 30 second scale MG, we'd be happy to swap for something interesting. A dictionary, Tim, because that's not how you spell swap. I'm going to get it in the neck in a minute. I get a text message from him, and he says, "Isn't it strange that all the old Matchbox kits, like Matchbox Monogram Revelle, seem to get the overall shape right? Something many manufacturers struggle with today." That's a very good point, and I think it's because back then the gestation period of kits was so long that they went through a kind of like a very long refining process. Not to say that things didn't come out that had odd shapes back then, but I think there's more refining of the research and everything before they committed to cutting metal back then, carving wood and cutting metal. Whereas these days, it can literally go from CAD straight to a milling machine. So it's a faster process, but I think that faster process has somewhat resulted in us ending up with kits that are so rushed that they're produced quicker than they can be researched properly. And Sean says he had the Matchbox 116 Ford Thunderbird. And John Kelly says Matchbox 32nd scale cars are little gems. MGTC, for example. Yeah, I've never built one, but I know I've got one up in the attic somewhere. So we will endeavour to find that. I know Revell did reissue some of the Matchbox cars and some of the Matchbox motorcycles, apparently. So I am keeping a weather eye on them to see, what's out there. So what we're going to do, excuse me, folks, got a frog in my throat. What we're going to do now is we'll jump over to the timeline. Then we'll do some modelling, I promise. Then we'll jump over to the IntModco page and see what you lot have been up to. And what you lot have been up to here, well, Andy Brennan, Matchbox May, he's made a start on the Hunter and he's doing it as a T7. Agricultural is the word that springs to mind. Yes. Yeah, that Hunter isn't one of their best. We talk about them getting the shapes right. On the Hunter, they managed to get pretty much every shape around that nose on both the single seat and the twin seat versions. They managed to get almost every shape on there horribly off beam for some reason. But you got to admire Matchbox for the fact that they weren't going to follow Frog and Airfix by doing yet another single seat one. They were going to do a twin seater. So, but yeah, that's looking fabulous, Andy. Just that two-color plastic, isn't it great? Andy King. Andy has been very ambitious with his 110, and he's been filling panel lines and chopping slats and reshaping things. That's looking fabulous, Andy. Mike Williams. Well, Mike's Sky Raider is going to be the one to watch, I reckon. I mean, all your contributions are more than valid, but Mike is just. I think anybody saw Mike's Invader. This is going to be something to really kind of watch because, as you can see, Mike's he's including the crew. Goodness me. No, he's not including the crew. He's left the crew out, but. Yeah, it's basic, but what Mike's doing here is just, is showing what you can do with this kit. And that's a big old thing there, Sky Raider. And yes, a judicious use of super glue. And he's doing the wings. He's going to do them folded. Excellent. Well done, Mike. That's how it should be with all naval aeroplanes. Now he's doing them straight. Oh, Mike. Oh, he's let the side down. But just fabulous there, Mike. That is absolutely top class. And Dave Fleming's come up with his Matchbox top five artworks. He says the Hurricane, yep, remember that. Mirage, okay. Lightning, the Vesp, yep. Humber 2, yep. They're all good. They're all good. And Douglas Hunter is doing their Meteor. He says, re-Skype, need to fix a couple of wonky lines. Don't worry about refixing it. Don't worry about fixing those wonky lines, Douglas, because by the time you actually start assembling all these bits together, there'll be so much filler going on that you'll have to go back and re-scribe it anyway. And here's Paul with his little Boeing, which, case in point, it looks like it's molded in the colors of the actual aeroplane. And Andy with his, oh, look at this. That's some dedication, that is. We've got a tank, and it's Shane Weir in the Australia, and he's pitiful progress. Well, Shane, it's not pitiful progress because you're actually making progress. But it's pitiful progress during Armour 8 Ball, but this far already in Matchbox May, and it comes with a diorama base with a skull of a cow or cattle or something. But yeah, built that one. Beautiful kit, absolutely stunning. And David Mummery has also got the Sky Knight. And look at this, Andy with his slats, leading edge slats on his Matchbox 110. That's not a Matchbox kit, but it is a Wingsy kit. We'll be talking about those at some stage. And more progress there on his Sky Raider by Mike. Oh, look at this. Nick Brown is building the Hayford. That is absolutely Herculean. I built that kit around about 1987. I made an absolute pig's ear of it, but goodness me, when Matchbox released a Hayford, that was a red letter day. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do with that, Nick. And more from Andy with his leading edges there. And Mike with his wings. Sean with, look at this for a collection. The Lightning T55, the Buccaneer S2, and the MiG-21 MF. Never built the MiG. I'll have to build it at some stage. Excellent stuff there by Andy with the leading edge light on that 110. That's the way to do it, folks. He's got the bits to fit. That's brilliant. Mike's Sky Raider, just scrolling down. Look at this. We've got here Sean, and that's his Mister, which I got the kit, and I probably will get around to building at some stage. He's done it as the Israeli scheme. And he says he messed it up badly. No, he says, I've been modeling for 12 years. I haven't been modeling for 12-ish years, and this is my first painted completed plane. But when I dry fitted it, it was perfect. When I glued it, not quite so perfect. Thought sand it and fill it disaster. I painted the camo, got that wrong, mind you. The paint match, mind you, you did the paint match as it is on the box, so technically the camo did work. I glossed it with Pledge to revive it, done the decals, glossed it again. I was going to give it a matte coat, but then I thought, leave it alone, probably mess that up. But overall, I did enjoy going on to number 3. Do you know what, Sean? There's not much wrong with that, really. Honestly, for coming back and throwing yourself into something like this, that is absolutely stellar. So I really wouldn't beat yourself up on that. Yep. To use a terrible pun, stick with it. Nothing wrong with that at all. So let's just have a quick scroll down to the rest of the thing. This is where Facebook's algorithms go out the window and you're trying to do things. P12, there we go. Boeing P12. That Boeing P12 is such a beautiful kit. I wish I knew where the tooling was for that, because if Revell reissued that would be brilliant. But it's one of those ones that's just dropped off the radar for some reason. And there's Douglas with his Meteor, which I remember skiving off Art College in 1987 to go into Wings and Wheels in Bath. Got the train all the way from Western-super-Mare to Bath. And on the trains, in the carriage sat next to me, was Alan Bennett, which was, I always remember that. Didn't say anything to me, but I thought perhaps he was going to Bath to get his Matchbox Meteor, but I didn't ask him. Fabulous Matchbox Meteor decal sheet there by by Dick Ward. So that's where you are at the moment with your Matchbox May stuff. Again, you see what I mean about that P12 being almost molded in the right colors. Oh, that Hayford, look at that. Oh, the Meteor. Yeah, goodness me, I remember that. I remember building that. Very ambitious kit from Matchbox, probably exceeded their ability to mold it correctly, but that's what you love about Matchbox. They tried. They really did try. And yeah, this is fabulous, people. Honestly, to see you all going in there and picking up Matchbox kits and going for it, it is absolutely wonderful. Really enjoying that. Let's do some modelling, shall we? Let's actually, because my contribution to Matchbox May has not yet started. So we need to belt on with this. So belt up as well. So what we're going to do, first of all, is we've got to do that dread task of changing scalpel blades. So I always do that that goes into the sharps box, which gets disposed of properly. And then we have, there we go, a fresh number 10A blade. I need to get some more 10A blades. Incidentally, Ian Hartup, if you are watching, I remember a couple of years ago you said that you found somewhere on eBay that did 10A blades super cheap. So if you can remember where that was and ping me a link, not only will I invest in some more 10As, but we'll share that so that the good folk here can also know where to get nice cheap scalpel blades. So if you can, that would be a public service. Thank you. Oh, I feel it's almost sacrilege to actually crack into this, but they were designed to be built. And I think that's exactly what we need to be doing with this. What glue will I use for this? I'm going to use my extra thin quick setting. I'm not going to use the magma glue. Nothing wrong with the magma glue. I just get very upset about seeing red paint, red glue everywhere, which reminds me of how utterly cack-handed my modelling technique is. So, to channel my inner Richard Burton, to begin at the beginning. All right, well, that's the cockpit detail taken care of there. That's the internal detail taken care of there. Can that be installed afterwards? I think it can be. I mean, as much as I'd like to include the pilot, have a think about that. I think if I do include the pilot, I get the feeling I could probably shove him into the cockpit after. So perhaps we will include the pilot, but we just won't include him at this stage. So at this point, Matchbox collectors are going to faint because I am going to start building this vintage Matchbox Hellcat. Kits are meant to be built, folks. So ready to hear the collective attack of the vapors here. So, oh, that's the sound of the Matchbox secondhand Hellcat market suddenly going through the roof because one more kit ceases to exist as a perfectly unbuilt example. So actually, the collectors should be thanking me because I'm actually increasing the kind of investment value of their collections. So, and also I'm a bit like James May. I don't care. Ultimately, yeah, I need a new pair of nippers because those are definitely starting to get beyond their useful service life. But I hope everybody enjoyed, those who went to the Milton Keynes Model Show over the weekend. I would have been going this year, but unfortunately, it wasn't feasible in terms of the dates and everything. But fingers crossed, I will be at Ways Fest in July. So looking forward to that tremendously, because last year's show was an absolute belter. Really was terrific. So let's just beautiful fit. I mean, compared to some of the vintage Airfix and Revell stuff that was around at the time, I mean, this would have been almost revelatory to to kind of like kids of my age, that these bits fit together without having to get rid of any flash and whatever, which, as he says, as you get rid of some flash. But what scheme am I going to be painting this in? I had no idea. I haven't yet finalized on the finished article. I fancy doing a camouflage one so I can try out my Hataka paints, because I still haven't got around to using them. But I haven't. It's going to be a Fleet Air Arm camouflage one. But that, honestly, those fuselage halves, that the fit on that is so tight, it's fabulous. As I say, some of the detail not great, but so what we're also going to check, he says, banging his head onto the camera, is we're going to check the fit of the cowl to see whether that will drop in afterwards. I will catch up with your comments in a moment, folks. We're just trying to get this show on the road. In theory, yes, you can add it afterwards. So, honestly, these nippers are starting to come to the end of their refined useful life. These still operate better than other nippers that I've got, but in terms of how they used to slice through plastic like bone through bar, they're not quite as good now. So I'll come back and deal with that in a second. So what we want to check is the fit of this to this. Oops. And yes, I'm still using that same 400 grit Infini sander. I will, at some stage, break open the box of other ones I've got here, but I don't know. I think there's devilish delight to be had in seeing how long one single sander will last before it really starts massively deteriorating, because this one is still soldering on. It absolutely rocks. They are fantastic. So, okay, that I think we can. Yeah, we can drop that. We can drop that cowling in afterwards. So, and I also just want to check the camouflage schemes, because okay, I wanted to see whether there were some Fleet Air Arm Hellcats had the cowl ring was white. So depending on what final camouflage scheme I go for, and I'm going to look to see what decals are available for this. For the moment, I'm not going to glue this cowl ring in place, because if I do choose one with a white nose, then it would obviously make sense to paint this separately and then just drop it in at the final stage. So I'm just going to go around the edge there just to tidy up all that, but nothing major. So let's have a look. That side, I think. Just going to go onto the mating surfaces and give them a quick burnish to get rid of any blips and things on there. But apart from that, we're just building this straight from the box. The thing that we're going to try and fool people with is the final paint scheme. Let's try and just make it look like it's more than it actually is. So to that end, that's why. And now it's time to install the cockpit detail. This is the cockpit detail. Which honestly, when in my, probably when I got around to I was about 11, 12, and I built my first Hellcat, it was a revelation to suddenly realize that cockpits weren't these shelves with, kind of like benches and things like this. I remember I built the Hella, I built the Hella Spitfire Mark V in about 1979, and it had a seat, it had an instrument panel, it had a control stick, it had rudder pedals. This was just, mind blowing. It also cost about 3 times more than a Matchbox or an Airfix Spitfire, but you could tell that this definitely felt like this was really upmarket, which was great. But unfortunately, my love affair with Hella was very short-lived because I just couldn't afford them, really. Couldn't really afford Matchbox or Airfix, but definitely not Hella. But I remember building that Spitfire 5 and just thinking, whoa, this is what the grown-ups build. But yeah, great days. But I think great days, but they're not all behind us. I genuinely do believe, folks. I was talking to this with my friend Alan today, and we have these deep philosophical discussions as we're quaffing industrial levels of cake. And I did say to him, do you know what, Al? I genuinely do believe the best days are yet to come. And I genuinely believe that. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to blob a bit of glue on there. I know this is the quick setting, but I just want to get that to nestle in place there like so. Because then it means I can just quickly check that against the fuselage just to make sure that it will properly seat, which it will. Yeah, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop that off again for a second. I just want to tidy that up along the top because I'm not happy with that. And that's fine. So I'll just pop that back in there. A little bit of liquid poly in there. Liquid poly, listen to him. Goodness me. Hello, everybody. Welcome to 1977. And then we'll just drop those 2 bits like so. Let's align that somehow. What have I done there? What have we done there, JM? That's more like it. Oh. We need more. Six sets of hands and 14 sets of fingers. That's it. That's perfect. So that's our cockpit detail there, folks. That's all we're doing. So what I am going to do is I'm going to run some extra thin down the inside there like so. Give that a squeeze. You can probably just see it bubbling out the top there. Oh, I know. Do you know what? Hold the front pages. I've realised what I haven't done. Almost a rookie error there. I did this with the Mustang. I haven't put the tail wheel in. But we can do that at this very early stage of me, late stage rather, of me gluing the fuselage halves together. Always knew there's something I forget. We can get that in there. Honestly, I love these Infinity sanders. If you've not tried them, they are definitely worth a punt. Although, serious face for a moment here, folks. Don't want to bring the mood down or anything, but I'm very conscious of the fact that when I'm hearing and reading stuff on the news about people who in the UK at the moment are desperately struggling with this terrible cost of living crisis. You know, some really, really heartbreaking stories of people who literally kind of like are going without food so they can feed their kids, you know, in 21st century Britain. And I'm very mindful of the fact that here's me, you know, and we're kind of talking about spending money on luxuries and things like that. So it's a very fine kind of balance between trying to be very kind of like promote our hobby and to try and be enthusiastic and, you know, whatnot. But I'm also mindful of the fact that it is a hobby, and there are really quite distressing things going on out there with people who, you know, can't afford the basics in life. So yeah, I am on it, let's put it that way, and I'm very mindful of it. And you know, and you don't take anything for granted in this hobby. But yeah, it is really quite upsetting at times. But which is why I say, if you can afford to support your local food bank, this is going off topic, but what the heck? If you can afford to support your local food bank, even if it's kind of like, you know, taking advantage of buy one get one free offers and putting the free item into the food bank, please do. You know, I try and do that every time I go out and do my weekly shop. But yeah, it's heartbreaking stuff. It really is. Anyway, look, let's not bring the mood down. But I know you good people are good people because I've seen what you did with Ukraine. So so we will. Oops! Oh, look at that! Look, sticky finger. Never mind. There's no detail there. So knew I was going to do that in the end. So I'm just running the extra thin along these surfaces and just giving them a squeeze just to get any kind of excess plastic out. So awesome sauce. We've only been building this model for 10 minutes and we've already got the fuselage halves together. So I just love Matchbox. Now, if I could have built this model and added cockpit detail and done this and done that, but quite frankly, there are already plenty of other much better Hellcat kits out there that I could do that to. I'm not building this Matchbox one to produce the best Hellcat kit at all, not even a good Hellcat model rather. I'm building it because I want to build the Matchbox Hellcat. That in itself is the reason for building it. And as I say, we're celebrating 50 years of Matchbox. Goodness me, 50 years of Matchbox. Mind you, I was sat in a cafe today. You sat in a cafe, JM. That sounds most unlike you. And I was enjoying a nice slice of courgette and aubergine cake. And they suddenly on the radio, they started playing "Come On, Feel the Noise" by Slade, which was the first single I ever bought. 1973. Oh, goodness me. How can that be 50 years ago? Ish. There we go. Another victory for a Florrie skinny sander to get rid of the those blips inside that cowl. And that will just drop into place like so, like that. So there we go. That's much better. I've got to say, in terms of shape, kind of nailed the Hellcat look. I think it does look the part. Now that where I went AWOL there with the extra thin just now, and I managed to mar the surface. Luckily, there's no surface detail there, which we're going to lose. So I can just go in there with this sanding stick and sanding sponge rather, and like that. There we go, job done. A little bit of Scotch-Brite. Yeah, repaired. So, what else can we add tonight? Probably not much at the moment. I'm going to wrap this one up for tonight at the moment. But I've started. More importantly, I've started. Always a bit embarrassing when you're encouraging other people to get on with things for Matchbox May. You're almost halfway through May and you haven't actually started your Matchbox kit. Good news. He can go in afterwards. So we might actually include the pilot figure. Shall we do? We'll do the drop tank. We'll get that out of the way, and then we're going to wrap for tonight. We'll just go through the comments. Hope you've all been behaving yourselves, and then that'll be it for tonight. But there is something gleefully cathartic about building a model where you're not worrying about, do I have to do this? Do I have to refine this? Do I have to fix this? You're just gluing things together, painting them, and that's it. It's not about building the best model. It's about, actually, here we go. I think put this on a meme, put this on a t-shirt. It's not about building the best model. It's about building the best experiences. Oh, goodness me. That's so saccharine. It's almost giving me diabetes. All right, let's get that out of the way. There we go. Nice bit of squeezy there. Oops. Which, incidentally, another serious face moment thing at the moment is I would seriously recommend every kind of 18 months or so, pop down to your local pharmacy and get them to do a diabetes test. Very painless. Just little kind of like literally a tiny little prick on your finger, and then that's it. And then you'll learn about your blood pressure. You'll learn about your blood levels as well, your kind of blood sugar levels. So it is well worth doing, because if you do need something corrective done, then they can do it straight away. So yes, what have we done tonight? Well, he started doing modelling, and he started talking about food banks and get diabetes tests done. But just looking after the audience. That'll do for tonight. We'll let that set for a while. Of course, we do have the fun to come of the wings and the way that Matchbox molded the wing brake, whereby that is actually on the upper surface. Yeah. Trying to work out what the designers at Lesney were thinking of at the time. But it's going to be interesting. It really is. We'll they also I'm just having a quick look here. there's some other weird design. Yes, the other thing is, I don't know if you can see this here, is that they also molded the inner parts of the wheel wells. Those are separate as well. They're not joined to that wing panel. Those are separate. Those are these sections here. This has to be the most oddly broken down Hellcat kit I can think of. Honestly, this is almost like this has been designed by somebody, then broken down by an engineer who had absolutely no concept about how plastic kits go together. It's one more odd puzzle to add to that mercurial, frustrating mix that is Matchbox. But we do love them, and that is why we are doing Matchbox May. So look, folks, I've bored you enough tonight. This is kind of like I said, it's just a pop-up tonight to just to try and show you where we are. I'm just playing the catch up here. Let's have a quick look. I've been okay. Chris Aliung says, I have the Matchbox 32nd scale Puma under construction. I've had it on my shelf of doom for years. I should take it down. I'm detailing the engine bays and the inside, hopefully to be in that wonderful Tiger Meat scheme. Yeah, remember that from the adverts. We'll try and actually scan the adverts for the weekend. And Sean Smith says the MiG is horrible. Yeah, they weren't great, but sorry. Rob says the mosquito is coming on nicely, but I wiped out one of the shark outriggers this morning. Whoopsie. Tim says, I'm trying to see what this. Tim says he was going to the tea room. I always feel I have parallel conversations with Tim. It's kind of like things come into the car. It's like, okay. Sean says, that's all right. Tim's a good friend. He'll forgive me for this. Yeah, here we go. Jim Aldcott, bang. Absolutely. Build models, don't just collect them. Martin Kovac, yeah. Absolutely. Sean says, I was going to the Milton Keynes, but my granddad, Paul Brown, couldn't go. Okay. Dave Swindle says, stickers on bare plastic for the fully authentic nostalgia build. Somebody's already done that already with their Buccaneer. I can't remember who did that, but it looked fabulous. I mean, the thing is, I say it looked fabulous. It looked fabulously authentic Matchbox. In the past, I've had to do kind of commission builds where I've been asked by the manufacturer, look, we need to show that this thing is molded in plastic. So can you just build it, decal it, but don't paint it? Goes against every fiber of your being to not be able to paint something or weather it or anything like that. But actually, sometimes it's quite a good experience to go through because it just makes you see things a bit differently. Steve Moore says, anybody thought about an IMC display at 2022 scale model world? We have thought about it. We will probably be there in a capacity of some sorts, doing some demos for some poor company that's invited us along. So we'll wait and see. Rob says MK was good fun. Nice to catch up with a lot of folk and some interesting traders, including VFR models, do some very nice 3D printed light aircraft. Came away with a Piper Apache. And John Kelly says, my Matchbox stash, part 1, Vincent, Black Shadow, Aston Martin, Ulster, MG, Jaguar S100, Siskin, Bell, OH58QR. Oh, talking of which, I'll end tonight with actually, no, I'm going to do it now. Gets his phone out. Don't worry, they're just tractors. Gets his phone out to share a picture because it was my day off today. So in case you think that it's on the. Oh, okay. Long story short, I'll put the picture up later on. I was in Watch It, and we suddenly heard what we thought was a jet flying over. It wasn't a jet; it was an MV-22 Osprey. First time I've ever seen one. That was tremendously exciting. It was Sean Smith. There we go. Did that on the Buccaneer. He painted it. Built it, but didn't didn't paint it, but deckled it. John Kelly says part 2, Dornier DO18. Never had that one actually, John. Ferry Sea Fox, got about 10 upstairs in the attic. Grumman Hellcat, Hawker Fury. Oh yes. MB117 got that. Nordoin Norseman, beautiful kit. I think I've got a Matchbox Revell reissue of that. Percival Provost, yep. Supermarine Stranraer, again, beautiful kit. We'll try and get Drew to build his one day. LRDG Chevrolet Command car and Jeep. Right, I will tell the tedious story that I always bore Drew with when we go to Rockford Telford. But I remember back in the summer of 1985, I was just left sixth form and I was getting ready to go to art college. And I had it was a blazing hot summer, so it was very difficult to kind of get any sleep at night. And I had terrible insomnia at the time anyway, so I'd end up sitting out in my workshop was in the garage back then. So I'd end up sitting out there until 3:30 in the morning, listening to a little wireless, little medium wave / long wave radio. Dark ages, people. And I just remember once Radio 4 had finished for the evening, I'd listen to the World Service, I'd listen to something. Anyway, but at that time of night, you'd suddenly get this weird thing where the signals would kind of phase in and phase out. It's very weird stuff happening, honestly. Atmospherics at that time of night with medium wave and long wave. And I remember I was building that summer, I was building the Matchbox LRDG set. And the radio, I was listening to something on the radio, then suddenly the signal just started doing that whole kind of thing or whatever. And then this piece of music came on and it mesmerized me. It absolutely fitted the atmosphere of the evening, my kind of mental state at the time, such as it was. And it played out and it was haunting, it was eerie, it was a really electrifying piece of music. And then towards the end, suddenly the signal just started fading back out again and it kind of disappeared out into the ether. And it was the best way I'd literally describe it as being haunted by music. It was like some kind of aural ghost had come out of the speakers of that radio and had just kind of drifted round my workspace for 3-4 minutes and then had disappeared again. And honestly, afterwards, I remember thinking to myself, did I actually hear that? Did that actually happen? It was only a few days later that I heard it again and I found out what that song was. And that song was A Love Like Blood by Killing Joke. Oh, what a song. Just honestly, beautiful piece of music. Really, really, really. Every time I hear that, I bore Drew senseless with that story. And secondly, always reminds me of the Matchbox LRDG set because I was building that at the time. There we go. Simon Lewis says, are they hardened blades on your cutters? If not, have you tried a sharpening stone to brighten the edges up? I probably will do at some stage, Simon. But the lure, having just said stuff about spending money on unnecessary items, the lure of getting a new set is quite alluring because they are just brilliant tools, absolutely first class. Nigel says, you are correct. Infinity sanders are amazing. As for economy, they last a very long time compared to other brands. I know, I've been using this probably for nearly a year now. Could do with a clean, could do with a wash. And apart from just up there, as you can probably see, a little hole there where I managed to bang it into something. These are still working beautifully. The cut on them is still fabulous. I am blown away by Infinity sanders. I think they are the best things ever. Brian Wilton says wheel. Yes, I forgot to put the tail wheel in. We've done that. David Murray says, will you forget? Will JM put the engine in? Yes, it was. And Brian Wilton says his first single was 3 Steps to Heaven by Shawaddy Waddy. Yeah. It was weird because I was into Slade, which when I think about it for a 6-year-old was kind of like madly kind of sub heavy metal, but then I was also into the Wombles as well. So Rob says tail wheel. Look, the tail wheel is in there. Look, for goodness sake, people, look, it's there. There it is. Look, never going to live that down. Never going to live that down. Never. There it is. See, everybody happy? Tail wheel, it's in there. No more talk of tail wheel, please. Yohav says, only Matchbox kit in my computer collection is a Meteor NF11, which last week I supplemented with a pair made by Special Hobby. Matchbox Meteor was one of those things that it was a brilliant idea. And the fact that they gave you so many options in there and a fantastic Dick Ward model decal sheet and beautiful box art, everything about that kit was brilliant, except for the molding. It just fit where it touched. It was such a disappointment. Mike Williams says, John, do you self-narrate what you're doing even when not live broadcasting? Between you and me, Mike, yes, I do. So, and Sean Smith also says, don't forget the free cancer bowel test kits, folks, as well. Absolutely, Sean. Just listening on the radio to the appeal by, hang about, the name is going through my brain all day, and it's Deborah James, who she's unfortunately had to give up treatment now, and she's into palliative care. But she's her fundraising thing. As I was driving back from Bishop's Lydia this evening, within 3 minutes, it went from 2,987,000 and it went up to over 3 million she's raised. So yeah, get your free bowel cancer test as well. It's plenty to public service broadcasting this. Yohav says the only, oh no, sorry, we read that one already. Do you know what? You should do Interesting Music Company on Sunday. We would do music, apart from, unfortunately, Facebook would hammer us for the rights on that. But yeah, we'd probably do a music episode at some stage. Yeah, Killing Joke, brilliant stuff. And their latest EP, Lords of Costa Rica. So we've suddenly gone into music now. But yeah, if you never heard it, Love Like Blood by Killing Joke. It's just got this brilliant keyboard sound. It's got this driving riff. Oh, it's a fabulous song. Honestly. Anyway, look, on that note, folks, we're coming up to 10 minutes to 9. I've got another show to prep for. But like I say, this was just a solo thing tonight, but we've managed to get a fuselage halves together. Yes, we've got the tail wheel in there. So I look forward to working on that for the next couple of days. By the weekend, we might even start slapping primer on this. But of course, the other thing we've got to face is the wings and that really strange breakdown of the wings. I can see me having to get the old black super glue filler out for that. So on that note, thank you for tuning in tonight. Like I say, it's Johnny No Mates here, filling in whilst everybody else is having fun. And incidentally, for some of you are thinking, why you weren't having a jolly today? Why weren't you in the office working? Well, I'd done several late office nights this week, to the extent that I'd already done a 4-day week by Wednesday, so I took the day off. Thank you very much. What did you do on Wednesday night? It was weird. He was modelling, then he started talking about food banks and diabetes tests, and then he was banging on about his long working weeks. First world problems with this guy. Anyway, on that note, just to say thank you for tuning in. We will be back on Sunday. I think it'll be me and Spence. We will continue to talk about our love for Matchbox May. And yeah, we'll be going through my top 5/8 box arts and talking about our other formative Matchbox experience. So, long story short, folks, if you thought you managed to get away this month without us banging on ad nauseum about Matchbox, we'll be banging on ad nauseum about Matchbox. So, as always, stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we'll see you again on Sunday. So thank you for watching. See you later.